before me here have an important part to play in putting together pieces of the jigsaw to complete the picture. It's a very important picture. And long after I leave here, and after all leave here, you have an important part to play in putting together a framework and a structure that those behind us will see the benefit of. For instance, the national broadband strategy of the government is not going to work in all cases because you have lots of areas that are isolated and removed. And yet somebody on the furthest periphery of Connemara should be able to be as technologically effective as somebody in central Tokyo. And that's why government changed the regulations recently to allow the Electricity Supply Board, Electric Ireland, to actually consider bids from competent companies to supply an extra fibre line directly into every house, which would deal with a revolution in the sense of being capable of bringing that capacity to houses. Secondly, there are a number of companies that you may be aware of interested in direct fibre across the Atlantic. We've had problems in this country for years in terms of foreshore licenses and the inability to take cable into the country directly. The question of latency is very important for trading banks, and split milliseconds can mean hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Actually, the line from Ballinaboy in Mayo, where the Shell terminal is built, now has the capacity for the ducting to Galway and on to Dublin, and the shortest distances between the great circles. There are actually a number of companies considering bringing new cables across the Atlantic, either to the south through Cork or the possibility of landfall where that capacity could be used, which would revolutionise Western Ireland in terms of its geography, its climatic conditions for data content storage and all of these capacities. It's not my first time going down here to the Sligo IT. And I just want to say that I'm always impressed, I have to say, about the energy coming off the place. Meet the students, international, national, local, and so on like that. And it's always an energy-giving situation when you meet people. Sometimes they have their own little problems and their own difficulties, and they're not afraid to say them, and that's the great thing about confidence with young people. And so I just want to commend you on what you've done here, which is a massive extension that you've funded from your own resources with a very small element from the state. So the new STEM development is obviously going to be important. I just finished last weekend with the diaspora, the Worldwide Diaspora Forum in Dublin Castle. Well, these were 300 of serious, influential Irish people from Brisbane to South America. And whether it be in the area of electronics or financing or whatever, influential people with a lot of ideas about how we can bring Ireland Inc. to the next step. And we give them a couple of commitments that we would follow through on issues that were raised by them as to what we could do. I've been in 20 companies in the last month who are all taking on new people. Many of them are in the financial world, in the trading area, in data content, in electronics, in logistics. I was in Dublin Castle recently, in what they call the Tour Tech, in the area, where 27 digital Irish companies were presenting for investment from venture capitalists from around the world. This was started by a Swedish man 25 years ago and moved from city to city. Absolutely fabulous companies, some of them that will explode in terms of employment potential as things move on. I've just seen it here in Rome IT, particularly interested in that young man with the Stable Lab, which has enormous implications in terms of blood analysis for the thoroughbred industry. You are aware that since Premier Xi Jinping came through Ireland on his way back from Washington to China, we followed this with some analysis both in terms of the beef industry, which you and I would know about. They no beef at all going into China from Europe. They now understand our competency, grasp the highest standards, possibilities that we looked at there. Also in respect of the thoroughbred industry, they want us to build a thoroughbred industry in China and we've had concessions now to export directly to China without having to quarantine for X period in the Netherlands or wherever else. So, like, a situation here where the world is changing before our eyes, and if we don't recognise that, then it's going to pass it by. So, both government and the higher education sector are clearly of the one view that there needs to be a redesign, not just a redesign, but a recasting of the entire higher education sector. And it can't be let wallow in troughs or in ruts or tunnels that it thinks it's doing great work, and clearly the movement outside is at the moving speed. I know that you are well aware of that. And I think it's important that we recognise the requirement to increase capacity, but at the same time keep it effective. There isn't any point in making a wild rush to one sector and find that it doesn't actually work. I have to say, I know Ray for many years, the old RTCs were the start of something great, and so many thousands of students all over the country emerged through these. So I was glad last year with NYIT, IT Sligo, GMIT to be able to use in Castlebar and launch a prospectus here. I was down at the Plough Championships. There were 200,000 people there over 3 days. The confidence was palpable from young people who see a future, with a future for the country. But you know what struck me? When I looked at the robotic arm, which is capable of doing a 65 dairy herd on its own, the requirements for farming when quotas go in the technology area will be very different from the requirements for a young farmer coming out of an agricultural college 10 years ago. Because now there are electronics and hygiene, computers and chips and lasers, and how this can operate. You don't actually have to train the cows at all to queue up here. You can watch it on your phone from the beach in Cork if you wish, if you take a holidays in Ireland. But the thought struck me that the requirements of young farmers as business people in the future are very different than what's applied in the past. And these things will evolve and change as time goes on. So I want to say that the concept of the technological universities is one that I support. Now, we launched this business down in Castlebar last year, I think on July the 9th. Now, there's no point in NYIT, IT Sligo, or GMIT participating in some kind of charade here. This is a serious business. So if you are to have competing for a technological university, it's not a grade 3 or a grade 4, it's got to be grade 1. So this requires some straight analysis and some very diligent work, which I know you're involved in, which is going to have to deliver on. And people should never be afraid of change, because it's going to come at us anyway, whether we like it or whether we don't. And if we believe that individual entities will survive in their current state, well, then we're fooling ourselves. So for me, I support very strongly, Ray and Terry, the concept of technological universities, but that it should apply and be there, stand on its own merits that are put together by GMIT, by IT Sligo and by NYIT, and association, of course, with NUIG, which is linked to UL, which will enhance the concept of the wild Atlantic way, which is being developed, and also the cluster in terms of the medical areas, the Baxters, the Oligans, if you've spoken to the Abbotts, and all of these companies. So in that sense, like, the next move is here. It's here, and this is where we've got to. I've had this around the cabinet table, where some very awkward situations have to be dealt with. And you say, like, sorry, this is being put together, and whether you like it or whether you don't, it's in the interest of doing business more effectively. So the students who are here, from Galway, Sligo, NYIT, or wherever, like, it's their futures we're talking about, as we all move on through the system, as it were. So I think the new systems that are being rolled out now, they're not actually intended to provide an even heavier burden on the IT sector. The national priorities of the government have been set out. They're clear. They're clearly expressed between here and 2016. Wouldn't it be a great thing to think that by the centenary of the Rising, that this is an issue that we have dealt with and that's clear, that we can say, here's a statement for the future. built on a long and proud past. So the set of the high-level indicators are out there, and there are conditions to be met, and they can be met, and they will be met. And I would like to see the Western IT sector meet those conditions, and that you get on to that. So it's, if you like, the overarching objectives that are there will allow an institution like yours here, which is very successful, to consider the full range of what's available and what may be available. I've had the privilege outside of speaking to students in Melbourne and in South Africa online. I'm glad to see that you're embracing the MOOC, the MOOCs, which are going to become a very important part of education internationally and globally. So there's a performance framework here, and that's a multi-purpose performance framework, and those who don't measure up will get left behind. There isn't any other way to say it except to say it as plainly as that, which means that there's a benefit for both government generally, for the higher education sector, but also for the country. And when I have the privilege of meeting so many workers in these new modern plants around the place, I always say you're not just working for the company, you're working for yourself, because you're carrying the brand of Ireland in your forehead. That means reputation, integrity, credibility and trust. And I have to say that when you talk to the investors here, or those who get the benefit of Enterprise Ireland assistance exporting from Ireland, of which there are many, it is about the combination of the tax and the track record and the technology, but it's also about the talent. One of the most important statements made in this country in a long time was made last week, and it wasn't just sort of a paragraph. It was three words, designed in Ireland. And those three words are printed on the new chip that was developed by Enda. Yeah. Because for so many years we have carried out instructions based on intellectual property rights from other places and manufactured these to world standard. This was the result of labours of 70 engineers, some of whom may have come from Sligo, IT, or London, who got together only a few months ago and put together this new chip, and written on it is designed in Ireland. It will allow students in this college and elsewhere around the world to do robotics, to do electronics, to do so many things. It's printed beside it on the package that you get with it is, what will you make? That's my question to the Western IT here. What will you do? The standards are there, the bar is there, the challenge is there. You have my support, and insofar as we can assist this, I see it as the opportunity for thousands and thousands of students, both at home and abroad, to avail of the results that can come from qualifying for technological university status. And we don't deal in grade 3s or grade 4s when these things measure up. We deal in grade 1. After all, I suppose, as Ray McShay and I would know over many years, it's the number one that always counts. Thanks very much.